Welcome back to the 3000 Step Stories, where you exercise and I tell you a story to motivate you. So, deep breath and let's begin. Today's story was created for us by broadcaster and journalist Yasser Usman. It is part of the series called The Gangster's Girlfriend, and today the story is about the glamorous Bollywood icon Mandakini, heroine of the famous film Ram Teri Ganga Maili Ho Gayi, and the man that her life got tangled up with, the notorious gangster Dawood Ibrahim, the man behind the Mumbai bomb blasts, head of the D Company gang, and number 3 on the world's most wanted criminals list. Mandakini, or rather Yasmin Joseph, which was her name, was born and brought up in Meerut and had only recently moved to Mumbai. And like every other girl in India, she had always dreamt of being a famous film star, of being part of the glittering, exciting world of Bollywood, wrapped in glamour, adored by millions. That impossible dream that so many young girls dream, a dream that is always so close that you can almost touch it and yet always just slightly out of reach. Little did she know, however, that she had been picked for destiny's lottery. Yasmin was about to get everything that she had ever wanted beyond her wildest dreams. Money, fame, glamour, everything. The only problem was that no one had told her that there is always a price for those dreams, because unfortunately, no one ever reads destiny's fine print. The year is 1984. Raj Kapoor, the Raj Kapoor, wanting to launch his youngest son, Rajiv Kapoor, in a film career, is looking for a female lead to play opposite him. The script is ready, the cast is ready, even the songs are ready. The only thing missing is the heroine. Raj Kapoor was being extremely picky. He wanted a new face, someone who had that lovely, sweet, fresh innocence, but also someone who could do what they call in Bollywood the bold scenes, which basically in the industry means revealing or intimate scenes. So Raj Kapoor was looking for someone who looked fresh and innocent, but would have the experience and the confidence to do the bold scenes, but still with elegance. And in his search, he comes to fresh-faced, blue-eyed, 21-year-old Yasmin Joseph. The film, of course, was Ram Teri Ganga Maili Ho Gayi, and it had turned her overnight from ordinary small-town Yasmin Joseph to Bollywood sensation Mandakini. The film was released in 1985, breaking all box office records and grossing millions, and all on the strength of that one scene. Mandakini wrapped in a few yards of white muslin sitting under a waterfall. Did absolutely nothing for Rajiv Kapoor, for whom the film had been made, but it shot Mandakini to superstardom. For months, the cover of every magazine, every newspaper, every publication across India had only featured Mandakini. And it was here on the cover of a glossy magazine that gangster Dawood Ibrahim had first laid eyes on this young lady, the girl who would eventually pay the price for all his sins. But who was this Dawood Ibrahim? Well, as most of you will know, Dawood Ibrahim is India's most notorious gangster, smuggler, killer, drug lord, the mastermind behind the 1993 Mumbai blasts. The list goes on and on, but here are a couple of things that you may not have known about him. One, Dawood Ibrahim had also started life with the dream of being a big Bollywood star, and although he never actually made it into films, in his head, he believed that he was a Bollywood hero. The way he spoke, the way he dressed, the way he behaved, it was all very filmy. Two, he was obsessed with cricket. Again, he had wanted to be a cricketer, never made it into cricket, but spent masses of time and money on the game, throwing huge parties, sponsoring teams, and getting very involved. And three, he was a complete romantic at heart and would fall in love on a regular basis and apparently have his heart broken on a regular basis as well. According to his biographer, his first serious love was a girl called Sujata. Dawood had first seen Sujata standing at a bus stop. It was the Manish Market bus stop in Mumbai. She was on her way to college and this was her regular stop. He had seen her there, fallen head over heels in love with her, and from that day on, the story goes, he would wait for hours every day at that particular bus stop just to catch a glimpse of her. Gradually, Sujata too had noticed him and she had also fallen in love with him. And the whole thing had had a really happily ever after kind of feel to it. But then her family had found out about their relationship and all hell had broken loose. Religion aside, because, well, he was Muslim and she was Hindu. Dawood was also a gangster. He was connected to all the underworld dons. He was constantly in and out of prison. He was suspected of having killed people. Sujata's family put their foot down. Not only was she forbidden from having anything to do with him, but just to make doubly sure, a suitable boy was found for her in a real hurry, and a marriage was arranged. Now, when this news had reached Dawood that Sujata was going to be married off to some other man, what followed was straight out of a film. With a red handkerchief tied around his neck, a Rampuri chaku in his hand. A Rampuri chaku is a sort of dagger. Dawood had stormed into Sujata's parents' home. Now, just to quickly explain, a Rampuri chaku is a large dagger, typically with a 12-inch steel blade, and although it's not a very practical weapon, it has always been the iconic weapon of both the old-style Indian mafia and the old-style Bollywood villains. And the red handkerchief was another staple of both. So, with his Bollywood obsession, this is what Dawood had picked too. And so the drama had begun. Dawood had arrived at Sujata's parents' home, red handkerchief tied around his neck, waving his Rampuri chaku around, blustering, shouting. He had tried to push his way in, demanding to see Sujata. Sujata's father, in an equally filmy manner, had yelled at him, "Get out or I'll have you thrown out of here." Dawood, by now fully in character, had yelled back, "Sujata and I are getting married and no one is going to stop us." Sujata's father, still yelling, had said, "No, she is going to marry someone else." At which point Dawood had yelled, waved his dagger around some more and said, "Let Sujata decide who she is going to marry." To which the father had said, "Fine, Sujata can pick whoever she wants, but if she picks you, her mother and I will jump off this building and kill ourselves." At this point, all eyes had turned towards Sujata. What was she going to do? Now, at any other time, Sujata might well have picked Dawood, the man that she'd been in love with for the last 2 years, but all this knife waving and shouting and threats had really scared her. And so she had told Dawood to leave because she said that she was going to marry the man that her parents had chosen for her. Dawood had been stunned. He couldn't believe that Sujata, the woman that he had been in love with for the last 2 years, had actually picked someone else over him, just like that. Dawood had left Sujata's house that day, broken-hearted, all the bombast taken out of him, and apparently had spent the next couple of months drinking and crying into his drink while listening to sad songs from old Dilip Kumar films. But finally, after a couple of months, he had pulled himself together, decided that having failed in love, he was going to put all his energies instead single-mindedly into his work. And you know what? He actually did it. The Sujata incident had happened in 1983, but by 1985, Dawood had become so big that when Haji Mastan retired from crime, again, quick reference, Haji Mastan at this point was the most powerful don of the Mumbai underworld. So when Haji Mastan retired from crime and went into politics, it was Dawood Ibrahim who had taken over the gang from him. He had literally become the most powerful man in the Mumbai underworld. And it wasn't just the underworld. His power had extended all the way to Bollywood as well. I guess Bollywood and the underworld have always been connected. So apparently, if Dawood ever turned up on a film set, just to hang out and watch the shooting, etc., the cast and crew would literally stop everything they were doing to look after him. It was like, "Bhai aaye hain, the Godfather has come." And as I said, this was in 1985. And it was in 1985 that the film Ram Teri Ganga Maili Ho Gayi was released. The film that had made Mandakini Bollywood's hottest heroine. So I guess they were bound to meet. Dawood was rich, powerful, loved Bollywood, and threw the most lavish parties where he would invite all the film stars. And Mandakini was the most sought-after heroine of the time. No party was complete without her. So yes, they were bound to meet. And in a way, perhaps this liaison was bound to happen. You see, Dawood had a reputation for being really charming with women. He was respectful, courteous, generous. He had this sort of aura of power and wealth. And because he had also taken over the finance and distribution of Bollywood films, it also made him the most powerful man in Bollywood. Story has it that one call from Dawood was enough to make or break a career in Bollywood. So yes, women loved him. He loved women, and as I said, perhaps this affair, or call it a liaison with Mandakini, was bound to happen. And I know I always say maybe it was an affair because this wasn't a wild, passionate, end of the world kind of relationship where the two of them had just seen each other across a crowded room and their fates were sealed forever. It was more like two people at the top of their game, just finding each other along the way. It was very measured. As a matter of fact, sometimes you wonder whether there was an affair at all because not only are there no crazy stories about them, like with, let's say, Dawood and Sujata, or Abu Salem and Monica Bedi, or others like them, but also Dawood had actually married his longtime love, Mahajabeen Sheikh, during his so called affair with Mandakini. Basically, that story is that at one stage, Dawood had received information about an encounter that had been planned against him. And if you've ever heard about these encounters, you know that these things only ever end in one of two ways. You're either captured or you're killed. More often, it's the latter. And so Dawood had decided to flee to Dubai, but in those 2 days before he had fled, where any other Don would have been focused on either dodging surveillance or moving money or settling scores or making sure that his men didn't turn on him the moment that he had left, Dawood instead had decided that he was going to allocate time to marry Mahajabeen so that she could go with him because he loved her and he couldn't bear to be parted from her. I mean, he had had the chance to pick one woman, and it wasn't Mandakini. So I have always wondered just how much of an affair it really was, but who knows, right? And so the night before the planned date of the encounter, in the middle of the night, Dawood and his new bride had snuck out of India and headed for Dubai. Now, it just so turned out that this was to be Dawood's very last time in India because a series of things were going to happen that would make it impossible for him to return to India again. But right at that moment, he hadn't known, and frankly, it wouldn't have mattered anyway because Dubai meant that suddenly he was completely free. There were no restrictions on him. Unlike in Mumbai, where there were all sorts of police warrants and surveillance, or there was rival gang encounters, in Dubai, he was completely free, he was safe, and he could still run his business in India in exactly the same way as he was doing. It was the perfect life. And you know, Dawood may have left India, but India had come to him. Bollywood stars, cricketers, politicians, businessmen, all had come to visit him regularly, and they were entertained royally at his grand home, which was called, wait for it, the White House. Dawood Ibrahim was nothing if not dramatic. Actually, all his homes across the world were called the White House. He had come a long way from the broken-hearted lover who had cried into his drink over Sujata while listening to the old Dilip Kumar sad songs. Now he believed that he was the most powerful man in the world and the world would adjust to fit in with him. And so India had come to Dawood Ibrahim in Dubai and he had entertained them lavishly, particularly when the Indian cricket team came to play in Sharjah. The cricket parties apparently were absolutely spectacular. All the rich and the powerful and the beautiful would be there, including Mandakini. And in spite of his brand new wife, Mahajabeen, who incidentally Dawood loved very much, the public only had eyes for Mandakini and Dawood. For them, they were the true couple. Now, over the next few years, life seems pretty perfect for both of them. It seems as though destiny has decided to gift them every success in every part of their lives. That is until the 12th of March 1993. The 12th of March 1993 was the day of the serial bomb blast in Mumbai, where a series of coordinated bombs had gone off across the city, killing hundreds of people. It had been a very carefully planned attack aimed at causing maximum damage, where the bombs had been set to go off within minutes of each other at 12 different locations across the city in such a way that help could not reach anyone. The sheer viciousness of the attack had shaken the city to its core, leaving a wound so deep that it still hasn't healed. And the mastermind behind the attack was Dawood Ibrahim. According to Mumbai police, the whole thing was funded by Pakistan's intelligence agency ISI and planned and coordinated by Dawood Ibrahim and his right-hand man, Tiger Memon. And it was on this day that Dawood, who till now had always been something of a romantic figure, you know, the charming, generous smuggler, the filmy hero type guy, this was the day that in the eyes of the Indian public, Dawood Ibrahim had gone from being hero to traitor and terrorist. And this is the day that Mandakini's life had changed as well. See, after the blast, the Indian police had tried their best to bring Daud to justice. They had tried to get Dubai to extradite him back to India, but unfortunately, Dubai had refused. They had then tried to clamp down on Daud's business ventures in India, freezing his accounts, etc., to try and smoke him out. That hadn't worked either. And while they were still trying to figure out what to do, in 1994, Daud had been shifted with the help of the ISI from Dubai to Karachi, completely out of their reach forever. And in Karachi, he was given a plush villa in the most expensive part of the city, and of the White House, of course, so that he could start life again in comfort and with a guarantee of protection. But what did Mandakini have to do with any of this? See, when all of this mess happened, with Dawood escaping to Karachi, no way to bring him back to justice, then came the reports that the Indian intelligence had the information but hadn't acted fast enough. The official agencies had decided to take the heat off themselves with an age old tactic: distraction. And in this case, the distraction was a photo. A photo of Dawood and Mandakini sitting at the stadium in Sharjah watching a cricket match together. It was not an intimate photo, it was not a compromising photo, also. It was just a standard media photo taken from a distance by some journalist covering the match. It meant absolutely nothing, but it was enough. And it had been used very strategically to divert everyone's attention from the real issues. The real issues being that the agencies had failed and that Dawood could now not be brought to justice. But the country, reeling from anger and frustration and the carnage of the bomb blasts and needing to take it out on someone, had taken it out on Mandakini. Once more, the actress had found herself on the cover of every magazine, every newspaper across India, but this time not as a superstar, rather as the mistress of the traitor Dawood Ibrahim. The headlines had ranged from "Mandakini betrays India with Dawood Ibrahim" to "Mandakini knows traitor's whereabouts but will not tell." There were even articles alleging that Mandakini and Dawood had got married. None of it was true, of course, but no one seemed particularly interested in the truth. Someone had to be punished, and well, she was available. Eventually the harassment had got so bad that Mandakini had to flee from Mumbai and go into hiding, hoping that being out of sight meant that she would be also out of mind, that eventually the rumors would die down. But unfortunately, the rumors had simply doubled, with the press coming up with new and weirder stories every day. One day it was that she had run away to Dubai. Then the next day it was that she was somewhere in Bangalore and she'd started wearing a burqa to escape attention. Then it was that she was somewhere in Punjab hiding in a gurdwara. Then it was back in Mumbai, and on and on. It was like a witch hunt. Now, also in the meantime, the police were trying to uncover and freeze all of Dawood's assets in India: his apartments, his bank accounts, his businesses, anything that was making money for him or his gang. And it was in the midst of this that the next leak had happened. An anonymous call to the police about a farmhouse on the outskirts of Bangalore, allegedly belonging to Dawood and being used for his illegal businesses. But when the place was raided, guess who the premises belonged to? Yup, Mandakini. Mandakini had bought this very out of the way place in order to get away from all of that unwanted media harassment, but once again, no one was listening. Once again, the papers said that this was Dawood's farmhouse, that she was his mistress, that she was carrying on all his illegal activities for him. Once again, journalists were banging on her door day and night. The harassment had started all over again. And this, in spite of the fact that the police investigation had eventually cleared her of everything to do with Dawood. But no one was listening. The police had said that they hadn't found any proof either of her having been his mistress or that she had been involved in his illegal operations or even that the farmhouse may have belonged to him. And Mandakini had really hoped that now that she'd been declared innocent by the police, she could finally return to her normal life. Unfortunately, however, the truth hadn't helped her at all. In the absence of the real criminal, she was still an easy target. And so, far from returning to normal, things got so bad for Mandakini that she couldn't even step out without being attacked. And as for work, well, no one in the film industry would sign her on anymore. No one wanted to know her. But this was still nowhere near the worst of Mandakini's problems. As soon as the farmhouse news started to calm down a little, something else hit the headlines. Mandakini was pregnant and Dawood was the father. An emotionally exhausted Mandakini denied it over and over again. It wasn't Dawood's child. Look at the timeline. It couldn't be Dawood's child. But the questions, the stories, the conjecture just wouldn't stop, and the media spun the story round and around and around, whipping the gossip-hungry public into a frenzy till her life had become pure living hell. In 1995, Mandakini decided that she had no choice but to disappear completely. Once again, she left Mumbai, this time breaking off all contact with everybody that she had ever known. No phones, no emails, no letters, nothing. And for years, no one had any idea where Mandakini had gone. So much so that the very last film that she had done was actually released during this time. It was a film called Zordar with Govinda and Aditya Pancholi. The film was released, but no one saw her or heard from her. She did not make any PR appearances. She was not at any of the premieres, no interviews, no photo opportunities, nothing. Ironically, however, Dawood was living in Karachi with full publicity, quite unashamedly. He had a brand new mistress, a beautiful young model called Sabah, and their affair was making the headlines in every newspaper, every magazine, with every tiny little detail of the relationship being reported, right down to the house and the expensive car that he had bought for his new lady love. While Mandakini was paying the price for his sins, almost fading out of existence with no trace of her to be found anywhere. But I guess in the age of smartphones and iClouds, no one can completely disappear even if they want to. A few years later, someone had once again hunted her down, and once again the newspapers were full of Mandakini, this time to report her marriage to a man called Dr. K. Rinpoche Thakur. And who was Dr. K. Rinpoche Thakur? A celebrity doctor from Bollywood? No. A rich doctor who looked after the dons of the underworld? Mm-mm. Rinpoche Thakur was a Buddhist monk, a disciple of the Dalai Lama. Mandakini said that she too had converted to Buddhism in an effort to find peace and direction in her life, and that this time she would just like to be left alone. But no one was really interested in what she wanted. Once again, journalists were queuing up outside her door, and the questions over and over again, as always, were about Daud. Had she been in touch with him? Had she been to visit him? How did he feel about her new marriage? And so on and so on. Mandakini had vigorously and consistently denied any contact with him, but no one wanted to listen. She had once said that it felt a little bit like being in a never ending train crash where you get hit by a train and then you try and take a deep breath and sit up. But before you can even take that breath, the train comes back and it hits you, and it hits you again and again and again. Finally, Mandakini had agreed to do an interview to answer all of the questions once and for all on her relationship with Dawood Ibrahim. So, on the 24th of Feb 2005, the Times of India published the famous interview with the line, "I am not Dawood's mall." The interview had opened with Mandakini saying, "Why don't these old stories about my being Dawood Ibrahim's girlfriend ever leave me? I want to move on. How many times must I justify myself? I never had any romantic relationship with Dawood Ibrahim. Never." She admitted that she had known him, that she had been his guest many times, but that they had never been lovers. She was a guest like anybody else. She talked about how that one stray photo had ruined her life beyond repair, how people had made up every story possible and just continued to do so. She said that she was so tired of trying to clear her name again and again, but no matter what she did, this just wouldn't go away. And sadly, Mandakini was right. The rumor circuit around her has never died down. Like rabid dogs, they report everything about her. Truths, half-truths, even outright lies. Makes no difference. One day we hear that Mandakini lives in Mumbai and teaches Tibetan tantric yoga. The next day they're saying, oh, she runs a Tibetan medical center known as the Tibetan Herbal Center. Another day they say that she's going back into films and that she and her husband are producing an English film together. Then it's back to, no, she's starting a tantric yoga school. Every day there is a new story while Mandakini hides, trying to protect herself and her son. And Dawood? Well, having escaped justice in India and Dubai, Dawood continues to live a life of luxury in Karachi. He can never come back to India, but that doesn't stop him from running his empire in Mumbai. His gang, the D Company, is still the most powerful gang of the Mumbai underworld, and all of his black market ventures remain as profitable as ever. He is as powerful as the day that he left India. For him, nothing has changed except his geography. Even Forbes magazine have featured him in their global list of the most dangerous criminals, where Dawood Ibrahim came in at a very respectable number 3. But even this only increases his fame and his fortune, while for Mandakini, all she can do is hide. Her life and career in shreds, the actress who had been launched to fame by the great Raj Kapoor himself, who had been at one time Destiny's darling, the envy of every young girl in India, tries her best to remain hidden because to come out means to face abuse. I sometimes do wonder, who does pay Destiny to make the rules?